Good morning and welcome to Where Justice Meets Action, a production of the Mississippi Center for Justice. I'm your host, Elijah Kareem, Communications and Graphic Design Specialist at the Mississippi Center for Justice. And joining me this morning is...
I am Dr. Tiara Y. Rand, Director of Communications for the Mississippi Center for Justice.
Each week we connect the law and the people to the resources that they need to build stronger communities across Mississippi. And this is your show too. Throughout the hour, we invite you to call in with your questions, comments, and experiences. Before we get started, a quick disclaimer. The information shared on Where Justice Meets Action is for general information purposes only. It is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, please consult with an attorney about your situation. Before we get started, I want to kick off the morning with our moment in action, our justice moment. Dr. Ray, can you tell us about that?
Sure. Today we have a little tip for you. It's about how not to lose your home or land in a tax sale. August 31st is property tax deadline. So if you need to pay your taxes, go pay your taxes. If your property taxes remain unpaid, your county or municipality may hold a tax sale where a lien is placed on your property, and we don't want that to happen. And so you'll pay your taxes, or someone can just buy your home or get your home or start the process of getting your land with just the amount of the unpaid taxes or an applicable cost. So don't wait. Contact your local tax collector or tax assessor's office to confirm the deadline in your county and to make sure all the information is correct and to pay your taxes. So, to learn more about that, go to Mississippi's mscenterforjustice.org under our heirs property tab.
Don't worry. And you know, that's one thing I've learned about this calendar. It moves pretty fast, and August 31st is right around the corner.
It is. So we need to make sure everybody's doing that so they can keep their land and, continue the generational wealth building that offers.
But this topic, it connects to our broader topic, economic justice, and protecting the financial well-being of Mississippi families. And that brings us to our special guests today. Joining us today is Ms. Charity Bruce Sweet, Director of Economic Justice at the Mississippi Center for Justice. Charity leads MCJ's work on expungement, foreclosure prevention, food security, and justice work access, helping Mississippians navigate legal and economic challenges. Charity, welcome to Where Justice Meets Action. We're glad to have you.
I'm happy to be here.
So let's get right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself outside of the bio of just MCJ. Just like what brought you to MCJ. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm a graduate of Tougaloo College, the illustrious Tougaloo College. And so I was an English major at Tougaloo. And honestly and truly, I was not sure about the law, as most people would say they knew since a young age. I honestly became a fan of the law while I was at Tougaloo, going into my senior year, being embraced by my professors and learning about Black history and civil rights on such a prestigious campus. Of course, it led me to want to work in civil rights. So that's what led me to my interest in MCJ and economic justice and wanting to be the next generation of fighters that will lead the fight for those that's coming after me.
I don't think we share our colleges, but D. Jackson State University,
D. I love.
But no, yes, but it's a lot that we can talk about here, but let's just hone into what is economic justice in a particular, let's go off with the particular experience or moment in your career that made you realize this is kind of work you wanted to do.
So as I stated, I went to Tougaloo College, and so I would say it was going into my senior year, that summer going into my senior year of college. I was interning actually for the city of Jackson, and we were canvassing the city. And we were canvassing the city with elected officials, but of course, canvassing is hot outside. Y'all see the temperatures outside. So we were in t-shirts and jeans, and we ended up in one particular neighborhood in the city of Jackson where the police were caught on us because they suspected suspicious activity. They saw us walking around and thought we were up to no good, actually. It's really crazy, and it still takes me aback because we were with the city mayor at the time, again, other elected officials, yet it was really interesting that as elected officials in the city, the community members still did not recognize his face or recognize their presence. And so because of that, the police were called. And it really made me think about the work that I do now, because at that time, the police were called, and if there were repercussions, or let's say we were arrested, then at that point, I would need the services that I exactly do now with MCJ. So it was really pivotal for me to open my eyes and really put me on my trajectory to really want to help others in similar situations.
Making good trouble. I don't know. That'll probably make me scared of something like this an experience. But no, we're glad that you're here at the Mississippi Center for Justice. But to go into your work, what is economic justice? When we say economic justice, we're talking. What are we really talking about? And how do things like criminal records, debt, housing instability, access to public benefits in the court systems become an economic justice issue?
So in a lot of ways, they become barriers. They become a hindrance for those that are seeking financial wealth and well-being. And so I always think about the financial health of an individual, but also the financial health of a home. I think about the children in the home as well as the parents. And when you think about consumer debt, and when you think about some of these cases, a lot of people assume that, you know, if a person's convicted or if a case is thrown out, that it stops there. But it doesn't. And so going through a lot of these processes and knowing the costs associated with the processes to get things cleared or to make sure that you have no debt on your record, it's not easy. And for those that face financial hardship, it's even harder. So when we talk about economic justice, we are talking about leveling the playing field. We are talking about getting rid of those barriers, taking away the hindrance, and really, really promoting the financial health and well-being of that person, but also their household and also their families overall.
That's phenomenal work. You know, I commend you for it, because economic justice, that's a powerhouse.
Yes. I know we're going to be talking about some things today, and folks might want to call in, so I just want to stop you and give that call-in number, which is 601-948-5950. So Charity, expungements. That is one of the things that I know that most people know MCJ for. One of the main things is expungements. So can you tell us just what exactly is an expungement, and why can clearing a criminal record be so important to someone's ability to move forward economically?
Right. So to clear your record is what we call an expungement. That's what it is. It means to clear your criminal erase record. It means to expunge or to erase as if it never occurred. Per the statute, it places you back in the position before the arrest or conviction occurred. And so with the expungements, a lot of people will assume or will have the assumption that you only need an expungement if you were convicted of an offense, which is not true. There are many of times, which I stated earlier at the head of the show, where you might be at the wrong place at the wrong time and someone call, police or officials on you, and it ends up in a subsequent arrest. Even with that arrest, it still shows up on the record. So you were never convicted of anything, but you still have something on your criminal record. An expungement is good to just clear that record in full. And realistically, it can also help alleviate barriers. A lot of people might not realize, but there are certain stereotypes and there are certain discriminatory factors that people place on people that they feel like have lived experiences. So if you're going for a certain apartment complex, but they do a background check and see that there's something that pops up on your background, then they might not tell you that that's the reason that they're not giving you that apartment, but they might look in another direction, and it'd be very detrimental to you and your family. Likewise, when it comes to the job space, when it comes to people wanting to move and alleviate themselves of that burden to move up the ladder, it's unfortunate because, again, sometimes it can be used as a factor to determine if you should move up or if you should stay in this place or if we should give you the job or not. And so a lot of times, expungements alleviate barriers and hindrances that can then breed financial freedom, I would argue. And it honestly and truly is such a benefit for those in workforce and workforce development, looking to really hone in on new skills and go after new jobs. know, I might have a job right now, or I might be an entrepreneur because I have something on my record, yet I really want to apply to a job that would give me health care for me and my family. My wife might be pregnant, and I need health care. You know, but people don't necessarily consider these factors unless the person evicts them, but they also don't necessarily consider the factors even when we're telling them. So I just want to reiterate that an expungement is not just for felons, it's not just for convictions. An expungement is for clearing your criminal arrest record, and that can mean that you were absolutely innocent on your absolute best day, yet you ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you still need an expungement for something that you were accused of.
Wow. So, do you have a story, without giving any, name or anything, that an expungement really helps someone?
Yeah, so many. But
Because it seems like it's a layered, layered barrier.
it is.
To jobs and school and living.
Yes.
It is, and I would say there was one particular expungement I have in mind of an individual who came to us, sought an expungement. It was a dismissal, a felony dismissal. Was able to get that expungement, get his record cleared, and he was able to move and take a job in another state and move his family to that state and prosper. And so it's things of that nature that we really hone in on and take pride on. But I also want to make another point as well, is that sometimes, even if you've never been arrested, it might just behoove you to get a background check. Because there are instances and examples where we have clients come to us who have something on their background, but can attest that I've never been arrested. I don't know where this charge is from. I don't know what this is for. And understand that sometimes names are so similar.
Right.
Social security numbers are so similar.
Yeah.
Birth dates are so similar. So although it might not be you that has actually committed the crime or been arrested for this offense, it could be on your background. And that's because I always tell people, understand that the systems in which we live in are ran by humans, and humans make mistakes.
Right.
And unfortunately so, that might mean that a mistake was made, and now your background is affected. So I always tell people, don't think that you're so peachy and clean just because you yourself have never found yourself in certain situations. It behooves you as well just to look into that, because we've seen that on multiple occasions as well, where people have had things on their record from similar social security numbers and birth dates, and they put it in the system incorrectly.
Right. That could happen.
At best, I at least try to do a Google search for my name, trying to see what's out there.
Google yourself. Charity, you mentioned background checks, and so that's a part of the process. Can you just kind of walk us through the process to get an expungement? Also, what are the implications in terms of timing on the state and federal level of when that actually goes through and you can consider yourself clear, your record cleared?
Yes, so background checks. I always encourage people to get background checks. Of course, you can go to your local sheriff's department and get one, but the Mississippi Department of Public Safety also has the opportunity for you to go online. I think it's around $32 or so to pay for a background check, and they will pull everything from a national level. That allows you to see what's not only in Mississippi, but what is, across the country. And when it comes to that, after you get that background check, and let's say something comes back where it's like, oh, I have a charge in original Mississippi for a misdemeanor or in municipal court. At that point, I would behoove you to call the courthouse to see if there is a record at that particular courthouse and get those documents. From that moment, call us, call MTJ, of course, because we would love to help you get all of your paperwork drafted and ready to present before the judge and the prosecutor, so that way you can move forward in that process. However, if you're not sure of that, or you're not sure what that process looks like, always ask questions, even when you're going to the courthouse. I always tell people to ask questions to the clerks, ask questions to the people at the courthouse, because they as well can tell you a little bit more information. Sometimes we're afraid to ask for things, but y'all, we gotta ask. Closed mouths don't get fed. So I always tell people to ask those questions to start that process. Now, when it comes to actually going through the expungement process, so when it comes to having your record, or comes to having your petitioning order drafted, and a petitioning order is what you would have to submit to the court. in order to tell them or to ask them, hey court, I made this mistake, but I'm really needing my record clear because I have an opportunity that's waiting on me, or I really just don't want this one mistake following me for the rest of my life. I always tell clients to give it some time. You know, courts are hearing multiple cases, multiple days a week, but give it some time. Give it maybe a week, 2 weeks before you actually follow back up on that paperwork to see where it is in that process. Some courts are quicker than others. It really does depend on bandwidth, depends on capacity. It just depends on the county. Like Hines County, we know it's just a large county. So there are a lot of documents moving through that system. I'm gonna pause. Let's have a caller.
Yes, here. Hello, and welcome to Where Justice Meets Action. How may I help you?
Yes, I was calling because y'all was talking about expungement, but y'all not talking about what kind of expungement, because I have been down there twice, and they're telling me that I can't get an expungement. There's certain things that you can get expungement for. So
That's a good.
I'm trying to find out what y'all talking about.
Yes, you are absolutely correct. So right now in the state of Mississippi, there are certain things that can be expunged and not be expunged. So we break them off into 2 buckets. You have felony expungements and you have misdemeanor expungements. With felony expungements, the state of Mississippi will only expunge non-violent offenses. Non-violent offenses. So non-violent offenses could be possession of cocaine,
I know
sale.
what it is. I know what it is. I've been letting y'all let the folks know.
Yes.
Y'all can expunge me because that guy, they had me going down there and knowing that I couldn't be expunged, you know. So that's what I'm saying. You're talking about expunged and tell them what they can be expunged for. You know, people make trips, like myself made a trip down there and couldn't be expunged. And, you know, it should be, you know, where my case is like 43 years old, but still, you know, it still causes me problems to get a good job. If I want to go back to school for certain stuff, I can't go back to school for it. And I was just a teenager when it happened. Here I am, 62 years old, it's still hanging over my back.
Yes, I hate to hear that. I hate to hear that. And it's unfortunate because they do have those stipulations and they have those regulations through the state legislature. So there are only certain expungements or certain offenses that they will expunge and others that will not. And for the public listening, you know, if you are unsure of what can be expunged or cannot be expunged, please just give us a call as well, because we will easily walk through the eligibility process with you to let you know what can and cannot be. We also have a flow chart, I believe, that might be on our website at mscenterforjustice.org that kind of allows you to self-assess and walk through that process and look to see if you are eligible based on what the state of Mississippi will expunge currently. So currently, as I said it before, it's only non-violent offenses. And so for what they consider to be crimes of violence or what they consider to be some not expungible offenses, unfortunately so, they will not expunge it. You will not be able to submit a petition in order to have it expunged.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Charity, I just want to say that people can go to mscenterforjustice.org under the Economic Justice tab to find out. Got another call coming.
Let's see here. Welcome to Where Justice Meets Action.
Hey, how you doing? I have 2 quick questions that I want to ask. Expungement is like the same as getting the case sealed. That's question number 1. And can you elaborate on more about getting the personal information off of the background checks?
Yes, so expungement and sealing your record are different. So to seal your record means that the record still exists. However, they are sealing it from public access. So it still exists, it's just being sealed. And expungement means to erase it. So when you go through the expungement process, the courts are actually going in and erasing that file. Now, when it comes to the background check and the information of that, I do not have the direct website for the Mississippi Department of Public Safety. However, I will say if you go on the Mississippi Department of Public Safety's website, then they have a tab where it's particularly for background checks and records that you can follow and complete an online application. Likewise, if you live in a county or city where you might want to walk into your sheriff's department or police department and ask them if they do background checks, Now, that might come with fingerprinting, I'm not sure, it really does depend on the city and county. However, most times, they are also able to run a background check on you through the NCIC system. And speaking back to what can be expunged and what can't be expunged, I really did want to lean into that, because as we talk about expungements today, understand that yes, there are certain offenses in the state of Mississippi that cannot be expunged. And when it comes to those offenses, again, we will go through the eligibility process with you to let you know at the onset of what can be expunged and what cannot be expunged.
For justice meets action, bringing the resources to community.
Yes.
That's what it's all about.
Charity, it's so unfortunate what the young lady called in and said about she can't get her record expunged. And so we've gone through what can't be. Are there any misconceptions about expungements that you can share?
Yes, I would say, well, even leaning back into it, of what can and cannot be expunged. I really lean into like felony expungements, but also even on the misdemeanor side, I would just say traffic offenses. Traffic offenses do not affect your criminal arrest record, that is your traffic record. So traffic offenses are not expungible in the state of Mississippi, although we might want them to be. Unfortunately, they're not, and they fall off after so many years. I would also say though, when it comes to what can be expunged or cannot be expunged, there are a lot of nuances there, which is why I would always encourage communities to reach out to us, reach out to attorneys that do this day in and day out, that have worked with court systems directly, and that have seen petitions and orders actually be ordered and records cleared, because there are so many nuances with it. When it comes to the statute, when it comes to the disposition, and disposition means guilty, not guilty, non-adjudicated. All of those things can be misinterpreted, I would say. Like, we've had someone come to us who had a non-adjudicated offense, but she believed she was a convicted felon, and she believed she was a convicted felon for over a decade. And it was unfortunate because it led her to not apply for certain jobs or not be placing herself for certain opportunities. However, non-adjudicated means that the court is withholding your guilty plea, and you are not indeed convicted of anything. You are set on a probationary route, and after completing the terms of probation, you are allowed to ask the court to expunge your record. However, the lack of knowledge and the lack of education behind it leads a lot of people to believe, well, I went to court for a felony offense, so I'm a felon. And that's not the case every single time. Even when it comes to offenses that we would assume cannot be expunged, understand that the disposition or what occurred in that case is what matters. There are so many cases where you might be arrested for something that cannot be expunged, but if it was dismissed, or if they entered an order for null pros, or if it was non-adjudicated, that allows you to take a different avenue or route that will really benefit from expungements. So I just wanted to make that known as well. And as well, hone in on like sealing your record is not the same as expunging your record. To seal just means the word, to seal. But to expunge it means to erase it, as if it did not occur.
Wow, good information.
Yes, learning things myself. The expunsion process is something very interesting to me. Just getting someone their rights back to just, I don't know, vote or just participate in other things, living situations. But let's go into this change in the legislation, how it affects everything that we look into. The legislators changed the waiting period for certain expungements from 5 to 3 years. Why is it changed significant, and what difference could 2 fewer years make in someone's life?
Yeah, I'm so excited about this, y'all. So House Bill 1546 was signed into law this past session, and it essentially reduced the waiting period from 5 years to 3 years for felony convictions. And it can make all the difference for someone that is looking to better themselves or to move on from a mistake, or to, again, to lean into better opportunities. And so instead of waiting those 5 years, they now only have to wait those 3. And it just went into law July 1st, 2026. And it's really something I'm not sure if the masses know about just yet. But of course, it's something that we've been watching and very excited to tell clients that follow us and to implement moving forward. I just had a conversation with a DA last week who wasn't aware and advocated on behalf of a client. So now she'll be her expungement today when we get to the office. So I'm super excited about the waiting period change. And honestly and truly, it's something that I would even speak to from one of the questions earlier, is that laws are ever changing. And I always tell people to keep hope alive, because laws are ever changing. And as we evolve as society, understand that our laws will as well. So today, it might be a question of why can't I be eligible for expungement? Yet years from now, you yourself might be sitting on the other side of this microphone talking about how you got your record expunged and you paved the way for others. So always, always, always keep hope. Always be on the lookout for what the legislation is looking to do. And you yourself also be an advocate. If you feel that there are pitfalls, or if you feel there are gray spaces in the areas in which you feel we need to address as a state, then always look for those organizations that are leaning into this work and bring forth your different perspective. Bring forth your advocacy plans or your solutions, and let's just see what happens. Because as we see, again, laws evolve.
Because MCJ gets involved in changing those laws. I think on the show before, last week or so, we talked about it may not change this year or next year, but sometimes over time, after you brought your story, you've raised your issues, it comes to someone like Charity and bring the issue to MCJ, and we go and advocate for that, and laws could eventually be changed. Like the young lady's issue, maybe that will be changed someday, Charity.
For the better. Keep hope alive. Yes. One connection that may not be immediately made between human trafficking and expungement: how can a criminal record be connected to someone who has experienced trafficking, and why can clearing that record be part of helping a survivor rebuild their life?
Yes, so that is something as well, like tied to this law change that I thought was beautiful, that they are now considering human trafficking and sex trafficking victims. A lot of people may not immediately think about it. However, if you are being trafficked, then there might be a legal activity that you are either forced to do or coerced to do through that trafficking, and therefore you might have a record from committing certain illegal offenses. And so it's beneficial and it's so necessary and needed, because we see so many victims that come out of it, yet they are still fighting for a new life because they have a criminal record following them. And honestly, it can be triggering to constantly remind them of the things they have to fight against and fight through. And so I would just say, like, it's beautiful. I would say we've helped trafficking victims in the past make sure that their records were clear, and truly, truly allowing somebody to feel like not only are they, shedding their skin and walking into a new life, but also placing them in a position to where they can go out and help others and pull them into a new life is really, really transformational and beautiful to be a part of.
That is good. That is good. Right before the break, I think we have time for one more question before the break on expungements. There's this term, informer, just tell me if I'm pronouncing this correct, informer pauperis, right? Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. What does it mean? And why is it important to file an expungement?
Yes. So informer pauperis is a Latin term for in the manner of a pauper. So it is a mechanism that you can use when trying to access the court system or access justice when you cannot afford filing fees. There are costs associated with filing cases. However, if you consider yourself to be impoverished and a pauper, then you can submit documentations to the court to say, hey, I really need to push this case through, but I can't afford these fees. And so it's really beneficial in all cases, and especially expungement as well, because sometimes expungements can be very expensive for those seeking a new financial freedom or a new route to financial freedom.
Thank you.
We'll be back after the break, but this conversation will continue. log back on, do what you got to do, take a break, shake it off, and get ready to ask your questions.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. That's just a part of what we do. She's got so much more to offer after
The
this.
Mississippi Center for Justice is here. We believe every Mississippian deserves a fair opportunity to strive, whether you're facing barriers to housing, health care, education, voting, or economic opportunities. Our team is here to help you understand your rights, access resources, and pursue justice through legal representation, community education, policy advocacy, and partnerships across the state. We work every day to remove barriers, strengthen communities, and create opportunities for individuals and families. Learn more about our services, your rights, and how we are advancing racial and economic justice across Mississippi. Visit mscenterforjustice.org. That's mscenterforjustice.org. Mississippi Center for Justice, advocating, educating, representing, changing lives, is a proud supporter of WMPR.
Real people, real change. You're listening to MCJ, where justice meets action. You're listening to MCJ, where justice meets action.
Welcome back to Where Justice Meets Action, Real People, Real Change. I'm your host, Elijah Kareem.
And I am Dr. Tara Lyran.
And we're here with Attorney Charity Bruce Sweet, and we're just discussing just economic justice overall. But a quick disclaimer before we get started, in case you missed it, the information shared on Where Justice Meets Action is for general informational purposes only. It is not legal advice. If you need legal advice about your specific situation, please consult a licensed attorney. But to kick it on off, let's talk to the public benefits of what economic justice offers.
Yes, charity. I know we've been talking about expungements. I just want to let everybody know that all the information that we've been talking about, they can go to our website, mscenterforjustice.org, and find that under the economic justice tab there on our website. And also, while we're talking, continue this conversation, if there are calls, questions, you can call in to 601-948-5950. Now we're going to transition from expungements that we've been talking about and talk about public benefits, and then there's this HR 1, right? So public benefits is another major issue, and a piece of economic stability, right? And what should Mississippi families understand about assessing the benefits that they may qualify for, and why the federal legislation commonly referred to as HR 1 is important to this conversation?
Yes. So HR 1 refers to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that was passed on a federal level, and it actually has a direct impact on public benefits around Medicaid and SNAP participation, especially for Mississippians with a relatively low median household income. And so, you know, there are a lot of challenges that we talk about. I would say for economic justice campaign, we specifically focus on like the SNAP side of things and what that looks like. And so there are a lot of shifts that will occur with this law being passed. And so it shifts part of SNAP cost to the states and increases the state responsibility for this administration. So what does that mean? Mississippi may need to contribute more to state funding to supply staff. They also might need to improve administrative advocacy to avoid additional costs tied to the error rates. For a state where many households receive food assistance, this could really create just a pressure on the state budget or lead to program changes. And so I always talk about error rates. And so error rates when it comes to SNAP just means like administratively, like how are you actually implementing SNAP benefits and giving them to the public? So they count the overage or the underage in which you gave to a household, and that goes to your error rate. Mississippi's error rate has reduced in the last year. However, even with that reduction, there is just so much that comes from it in the sense of the financial impact that it will have on the state. Even with the error rate reducing, if your error rate is not within a certain amount, then you could be facing up to millions to billions of dollars owed back to the federal government. Right now, I want to say, based on our error rate reduction, and this is just me off the top of my head, please don't directly quote me, but I want to say we were around only possibly 20 million or so 12 million come from with all of the issues and other things that we're already facing in Mississippi. So you have to think about what does that look like long term for people needing public benefits or needing to access these public benefits. Even during the government shutdown that happened at the end of last year, a lot of the individuals we serve, were directly affected and impacted. And then you also look at the federal workers that were impacted because they were not working. So we, of course, stepped into action, which I love. It's something that we do. We had an event where we gave out free and fresh produce, groceries, and things of that nature in partnership with a lot of organizations and farmers markets around the state. But realistically, looking ahead, the implications and the impact that it will have on the state overall, it's just something that I would advise people to be on the lookout for. That's something that we're, of course, advocating for and fighting for in the state legislature now. Because even if there are cuts, or even if there are certain parameters on the federal level that are now being implemented, what can Mississippi do on the state level to protect property rights? What can we do to ensure that people are still having access to this? Because I want to just speak to like the negative stereotypes that a lot of people have around public benefits, because the assumption is that, oh, well, you don't work a job, you're living in your mom's basement, but you want to get free, food, free SNAP benefits, and that's not the truth. A lot of the people that we help, a lot of the people that we assist are working moms and working fathers just needing a little bit of supplements, and that is the program. It's supplemental. So it's something to help alleviate that financial burden. And yet many people assume that people are just sitting, being lazy and having to get free EBT or free SNAP benefits at the cost of taxpayers. Realistically as well, even when it comes to public benefits, there are certain requirements that must be met even to qualify for them, including work requirements. Like there are work requirements associated with public benefits. And so I just also want to ping the negative stereotypes. And if you're unsure of what the work requirements are, if you're unsure of what really the requirements are, especially in Mississippi, who is one of the most tedious states, I would say, as far as like the requirements and like the reporting processes, then call us and we can walk you through it. Or even if you want to just take a look at our website, or if you want to look it up yourself, please feel free to do so. But public benefits overall, again, are a supplement. It's beneficial for those that need it, especially in a state where we have so many underserved and low-income residents, and especially SNAP and food assistance, where we literally have so many food deserts across this state, where people are truly just trying to get access to better choices. Yet, when you look around, in certain areas, I think about the Mississippi Delta, where we have an office, and a lot of times their fresh produce comes from the Dollar General market, and that's considered to be fresh because they offer it. But how many times have we walked into those stores and have seen physically that the food is not fresh? And I also want to take a spin even economically on it, because I think a lot of times people focus on, again, the negative stereotypes, but understand that economically that public benefits, SNAP and Medicaid, benefit the state in so many ways. And when it comes to the economic future of public benefits, I always think about even like grocery stores and mom and pop shops, and imagine those that we're talking about just now, like in the Delta, when it comes to access and when it comes to food deserts, and majority of their clientele have SNAP or EBT. And what does it look like if these benefits are starting to be cut from these households? What impact does that now have on the one grocery store that they might have in a 20-mile radius that actually serves fresh produce? And so those implications overall, holistically, I think is what people should think about and focus on. And sometimes it's just not brought to the forefront.
I know, going back to the harvest, that's just a little bit, because she touched on it slightly, but I don't think you guys realize, not only did they provide fresh produce, but it was a cooking demonstration, it was cookbooks that was given to community, so it was you took the holistic approach outside of just giving them exactly what they need. So that right there, that was a huge event in my book, because it was something impactful, because the government was shut down around the time and people were scared. Let's go into the financial wellness. Economic justice isn't only about responding when someone is already in crisis. MCJ also works on financial empowerment. What does financial wellness look like, and what are some practical steps people can take to build financial stability?
So I think financial wellness looks different for every household and every person. And honestly, just depends on what works best for your family. And I think that that's something that we need to promote and that we have to lean into. As a society, you know, we look at social media, we look at others, and we see what they have and think, well, I'm not what they are, so I'm not financially sound. However, we all know, you know, as I grew up hearing, sometimes people rob Peter to pay Paul. And so that is not what we should shoot for as far as financial wellness. We have to look at what's coming into our homes and what's going out to ensure that we have some type of financial health. I would say one of the things that really would promote financial wellness as well as stability is even just forming a relationship with financial advisors or financial bankers in your community. It's not to say that you want to necessarily have an account at this bank, but I do think it's beneficial to talk to someone in that bank, to form a relationship with them, and to understand what services that they might offer, even if you don't plan on accessing them in that moment. Because I always want to promote proactiveness, and I feel like even in a financial security state, we want to promote proactiveness. We want to look at, okay, I have X amount of bills this month. I make this much. I either being, you know, paid on a monthly or bi-monthly rate. What do I need to look like to make sure that my financial health is actually in this evening? And I would say just taking the first step to talk to someone who possibly can advise you in a better position. I would say that it's something that we're working on internally to try and help with financial planning and financial coaching. It's something that we do through our financial literacy courses, but we really want to add that component to be one-on-one with community members, one-on-one with families, to actually put them in better positions. So yeah.
I have a thought. So someone, I can see people saying, I'm not going to a bank. It's like if you make a certain amount, you know, you're living paycheck to paycheck, and you talk about budgeting and whatever, you know, somebody like, I'm not going to a bank. They can't help me. But to your point, I just want to reiterate that they can, and bankers are looking and wanting people to walk through the door it just might be your starting point. You know, it just might be that you don't think you have enough money where you can talk about things like that, but it could be just the starting point for someone. And bankers are looking for those individuals to walk through their door so that they can help them. That can be that step you make to start building and step going up the ladder, and how to budget your money and here and there and grow from there.
Yes, and that's something that we realize, even when working in community, like trust is so important. And I would say that that's something we've leaned into on both sides. We've been able to build relationships with financial partners across the state, and to go into their financial institutions to let them know, hey, community does not trust you. What are you doing to benefit community? What are some resources that we can work on together that will actually benefit community and not come off as predatory to community? Because we always want to advocate against that. I always want to advocate against predatory practices. And so I would say, even for someone that might not necessarily feel comfortable going into the bank themselves, give us a call again, because as advocates, we don't just focus on the legal side of things, but we also focus on the community side. We want to be there for community in any way that we can. And with financial wellness and financial stability, that is one of the areas of work that we focus on, and we really just want to be there for someone. Maybe you don't know the questions you want to ask, but just start with coming to us, and we can formulate a plan together. And we can walk with you into that bank and really be there as an advocate, so maybe you will feel a bit safer or a bit more secure in that conversation.
Right.
So advocating in the courtrooms, the banks, and the Capitol. Economic prosperity. And I wrote that word down earlier because I say it's on one of your signage just in your office. So just what exactly does that mean to you to have prosperity with economics?
Oh.
I know, put you on the spot.
I mean, I think economic prosperity is just, you know, it's an abundance. and it is a freedom, and you are not necessarily drinking from the cup. You are drinking from the overflow as it falls off into And so I think economic prosperity truly is putting people in a position to where they can benefit and actually thrive in their overflow. They are not having to only think about the things which are coming to them in that moment, but overall.
So that's why I asked that question. I knew you had it in you. But let's go into predatory lending and payday loans. Mississippi has a significant payday lending industry. Why can a loan that appeared to provide quick financial relief actually deepen someone's financial problems?
Oh, interest rates. Interest rates. And, when it comes to predatory lending, that is something that I would also say be on the lookout for as far as like legislation on a federal and state level. Like there are many people as well as our organization advocating to cap interest rates, because interest rates when it comes to payday loans can be astronomical, like sometimes even up to like 300%. You might go in for a loan and it's a quick fix because it's like I really need just some money to pay my car note. Yet the renewal fee you might pay on top of it and the interest rate you're going to be facing, you might pay over the course of time 3 times the amount you actually borrowed.
Right.
And so it's unfortunate because even when it comes to a lot of like payday loans, check cashing places, they don't necessarily want much information. You give them your driver's license, you tell them how much you need, they see if you're going to be approved or not, and then you're like kind of trapped in this cycle of debt. And there are many, many clients that we've assisted to get out of that cycle of debt, but there are also some clients where we've seen how long it can take them to get out of it, where there might have been one loan that they got in 2024 that they're not necessarily going to be out of until 2026, 2027 based on the interest rates. And so I know we'll talk about it, but it leads to even that road to justice court in a lot of consumer cases that we see and advocate for. And so I know payday loans and check cashing places might seem like a quick fix, but there are alternatives, especially at your financial institutions and with our banking partners. There are small dollar loan alternatives that you can lean into. And again, we work with financial institutions one-on-one to really curate programs that benefit community with fixed interest rates that also take into account credit scores and also help with credit building. And through that program, a lot of times we will not only offer a small dollar loan, but also try to set people up to have savings and things of that nature by the time they finish that course.
It looks like we have a caller. Let's see. Welcome to Where Justice Meets Action.
Yes, I was calling. I'm enjoying the program. I want to know, do you all also help people with trust? How to have a trust or set up a will? Or the other question I wanted to know, we have so much death and killing and, with these, what they call GoFundMe, do you all have classes to teach people how to put back, to have like life insurance and how to go by getting prepared, proactive? I'll just use that word. I'll hang up and listen.
Yes, thank you for your question.
So yes, ma'am, we do. Through our financial literacy courses, we also do retirement planning as well as life planning, which it will help when it comes to the life insurance and knowing what you can do to set your family up in the best situated scenario for yourself and for others. And I would say when it comes to estate planning, now that's another campaign that we have. So you're leaning into all of MCJ's resources, but we do have a campaign, which is the Heirs Property Campaign, and they have a focus on protecting, family land and promoting generational wealth. And they do that through estate planning, which again is wills and estates. So our Heirs Property Campaign is not here right now, but as Dr. Wren mentioned, you can go to our website at mscenterforjustice.org, mscenterforjustice.org, and we have an Heirs Property Campaign tab where you can follow that tab and get a bit more information as well as contact their intake associate just to see what parameters there might be to get some services through their campaign. But thankful for the question. I
Yes.
love
I
it.
know, yeah, we over here lifting up today. We want to help we got something that touches on a little bit of life.
Yes.
In every aspect of life.
Yes,
So
real people,
thank you for
real
that
change.
real people, real change.
Yes.
Y'all heard our jingle?
Let's
Very good.
go into the foreclosure because that's another aspect of the work that you do. So let's just talk about homeowners. If someone falls behind on their mortgage or receives a foreclosure notice, what should they do and what should they absolutely not do?
So I would say contact your mortgage company if you receive a mortgage notice saying you fell behind, and also contact MTJ because sometimes you might not feel as comfortable or know necessarily exactly all of the language or the legalese that's being used in those notices. But I will state one thing that I'm not sure if a lot of people know, that Mississippi is a non-judicial foreclosure state, meaning that Mississippi, as our state laws are set up, it is not necessary for a mortgage company to necessarily provide you direct notice. The notice that they can provide is also just posting it consecutively 3 weeks in a public forum, so that way you are aware that your home is go for foreclosure. Now, many mortgage companies, again, will send you a notice before it gets to the point to say, hey, you're heading towards foreclosure, you're in delinquency, like you're facing foreclosure status. And so if you ever receive that, please give us a call so that way we can assist you with understanding what it means and also looking at what options you might have. There might be some retention or non-retention options that we can talk to you about through the mortgage company or through other resources and other organizations and community action agencies that we're in partnership with.
I would say before, just a little bit, talk about the scams of foreclosure because people will receive a fake notice and react right then and there. So
Yes.
just a little bit talk about the scams.
Yes, you have to be careful, especially elderly individuals, because there are a lot of times where people will receive notices or letters in the mail from someone that said that they bought their home in a foreclosure sale, and they are ready to say, what? Or contact that person and try to offer settlements to get the home back. Please don't. Before contacting them, again, call your mortgage company to see if it is true and actually exists. And if your mortgage company is like, no, what are you talking about? Then at that point, please put the letter to the side. You can also call us. We do not mind, again, stepping into that legal leg, but also stepping into that community advocacy leg, and advocating on your behalf, but also submitting some type of demand letter or cease and desist or things of that nature. But realistically, yes, scams do occur, especially in the foreclosure community and especially with the elderly community. And we just want to be sure that we're taking care of one another. And so if you're listening today and you have a friend or you have a friend or a friend and they come to you with a question, just know that you're getting some education where you can also share with them, because what we do best is protect each other.
I want to skip to something that we've been talking about the last few shows, and that's voting, right? And how that affects across the board any campaign that we have at MCJ, and any issue in your life and in your home and family and community. So how does civic engagement apply to economic justice?
It applies in so many areas. I mean, the one that I can think about, of course, at the forefront of my mind is expungements, as we talked about earlier. Because having something on your criminal arrest record, depending on what that charge is, can prevent you from voting. And it can prevent you from voting for life. It can be a disenfranchising crime. Yet there are disenfranchising crimes in the state of Mississippi that can be expunged. So what does that lead to? What does that mean for someone who was told that they couldn't vote for life, but now they're getting an expungement? And so the assumption is, well, maybe I can vote now. And so we do have some areas in the law that we're still advocating for clarity around. But when it comes to that civic engagement beyond that, just on a local level, we have to think about it. Your local police officers, your sheriff's department, your circuit clerks, your municipal courts, every person that you might interact with on a daily basis was put in that position based on the vote of the people. And so based on that and the cases that they handle or the decisions that they make, you have a direct implication. You have that direct, authority to determine, okay, well, you know, I actually really like this person, or maybe we need somebody in the seat that's a bit more for the people. And so you have the opportunity to advocate, to rally, and to vote, and to actually change it, and change the course of not only your life, but also the trajectory of others around you. And so I say civic engagement, and knowing who is in the position, knowing who is on the chessboard, as I would say, but also knowing who is the one making moves is very important, because your assumption might be, oh, well, I can't do this because, you know, the clerk at the front desk told me. But is it the clerk at the front desk? Is it the deputy clerk? Or is it the judge making the decision? At that point, that can change your perspective. It can also change your route to advocacy and what you need to do behind it. So I always tell people to be aware, to be cognizant, and to also just make your decisions, you know, in good faith based off of the knowledge and education you learned.
So casting your vote is an economic justice issue too.
Yes,
right.
Yes.
Economic justice issues, you know, raising your voice at the polls, and as our theme says this year, go take a stand. Take a stand for who you think should be in certain positions to make these decisions, and who you're interacting with, and it really has a huge effect on your life based on the decisions and that will be made. Looking toward the legislative session, we're going to be going into the session and talking about some of these things. I think we'd like to wrap it up now, but just give a quick view of legislative session and what you plan and things coming up in 2027.
Ooh, so I would just say, even speaking back to the public benefits, be on the lookout for things being introduced around public benefits, as well as expungements. When it comes to that delineation of you having your record sealed or having your record expunged, please be on the lookout for things such as those. But in a general sense, just be on the lookout in general. I know a lot of people only want to focus on specific issues that might, you know, pertain to them or their specific circumstances. However, you never know, again, speaking back to holistic implications and holistic repercussions, how it could affect you. So I would just say, please pay attention to the state legislature this upcoming session. You know, if you are not sure or if you have questions, come to our social media page, come to our website, because we do provide updates when it comes to policy and advocacy. And we also, you know, have community events around a lot of things pushing for the legislation. So
Contact number.
our contact number is 601-352-2269. Our contact number is 601-352-2269.
That's good. Let's just go into the final words. We mentioned economic prosperity. We talked about going to vote. Just give a final word. What would you want people to walk away with?
Start the process by asking questions. There is no dumb question. There is no question that cannot be answered. Even if the person that you ask says they do not know, maybe they can point you in the right direction or resource. So again, as I stated earlier, closed mouths don't get fed, and we are here to help. We are here to lead. We are here to educate. So ask the questions. If you're unsure, please call us at that contact number or visit our website. We would love to sit down with you just to learn more and to see if there are any of our campaigns that can assist you.
Well, you guys, thank you, Charity, for joining Where Justice Meets Action. To the listeners on Facebook Live and live on the radio, thank you for joining us. And that's all for this edition of Where Justice Meets Action, produced by the Mississippi Center for Justice. Again, I'm Elijah Kareem.
I'm Dr. Tiara Y. Rand.
And we just appreciate your time for joining us. If you missed any part of today's program or would like to learn more about the resources we discussed, visit us online at mscenterforjustice.org and follow the Mississippi Center for Justice on social media. Join us again next week for another conversation about the issues that matter most to Mississippians. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep moving justice into action. Have a great week.